I'm sure 90% of my audience knows the history of Shovel Knight by this point, but if you need a refresher... Former WayForward employees made a new game company called Yacht Club Games, did a Kickstarter for an NES-inspired game called Shovel Knight, which made its goal and then some. The initial game was released in 2014 to commercial success and critical praise. The devs made free expansions, adding a lot of content to the game up until 2019, along with the titular character making cameos in other indie games. This review will only cover the Shovel of Hope campaign, which was released in 2014 and is the main course of Shovel Knight. I'm planning on covering the other campaigns and modes later this year as they stand on their own with their own story and gameplay, but for now, let's talk about Shovel Knight Shovel of Hope, aka the best 2D platformer I've ever played. And no, not because the main character is blue, pants 87. Yeah, I see you, Fred. Stop annoying me about my subway edition. Shovel Knight takes place in a world filled with adventurers that go around doing all sorts of adventures, as the name implies, for fame, fortune, or excitement. We follow two of these adventurers, Shovel Knight and Shield Knight, as they head to the Tower of Fate, with the outcome seeing Shield Knight disappear. Shovel Knight, depressed over the loss of their friend and possible lover, stops adventuring for a while, until a bunch of hooligans called the Order of No Quarter and the Enchantress cause panic throughout the lands. Shovel Knight dusts themselves off and gears up for another adventure. The plot is simple, but gets the job done, like most NES games, but what makes the narrative stand out from most NES games is the witty dialogue and interesting characterization from the characters like the Order of No Quarter, people in the town, other knights you encounter on the level select map, and from Shovel Knight themselves. The story even got me emotional towards the end of the game, with a twist I didn't expect in my first playthrough. Yeah, it's not the best story ever told in games, but still a well done one in my opinion. On a side note, I love the customization in this game. You could change the gender of every major character in the game, which gives them a new design. It's not that important to the story or gameplay, but it's a fun feature for people like me who love personalizing their games with customization options. But who wants to customize things in video games that look like my uncle's taste in movies? My uncle, that's who. While Shovel Knight aims to be a throwback to the NES era in both style and gameplay, it doesn't limit itself to the NES by having detailed sprites, colorful visuals, and elaborate animations that couldn't be done on the NES. What helps Shovel Knight's graphics is that the various characters have simple yet clean designs. Shovel Knight is one of my favorite designs for a character ever, and no, not just because he's blue, it's because, like many great video game icons, Shovel Knight's design is simple yet memorable, which describes a lot of the characters in the game. Though I think it's hard to forget about a knight who wields a shovel no matter whatever the design he's attached to is. As for music, Jake Kaufman works his magic to bring us some awesome chiptune goodness with a touch of medieval fantasy. I mean, when you hear the tune for the first level, you know you're in for an adventure. But is the adventure that Shovel Knight gives you fun? In Shovel Knight, you can jump and use your shovel to attack or bounce off enemies and objects. There's also the relic system, which gives you various useful special weapons for traversing levels and attacking enemies. I got a lot of use out of the relics, with my favorites being King Knight's Fire Rod and Propeller Knight's Sword, but Tinker Knight's relic was the most useless one for me, since I only used it twice throughout the entire game. Mediocre relic aside, these mechanics already sound like fun, but it's made even more so of how comfortable it is to control Shovel Knight, since he's not too slippery or stiff. Yeah, the shovel fell control as well, but what about the levels? Are they Nintendo hard? Well, you gotta be specific with that statement. Are we talking about Nintendo hard in the 80s or Nintendo hard nowadays? Side tangents aside, the levels in Shovel Knight are what we call here at Bluey Productions balanced. You will dial out, but thanks to an infinite life system and checkpoints throughout the level, you can dust yourself right back up and easily try again. Unfortunately, the biggest fault of Shovel Knight comes in the levels. Not the level design, I'm talking about the length of the levels. These levels are a bit too long for my taste, which isn't a problem when you're marathoning the game, but when you're playing it while squeezing other games into your schedule, along with the fact that 2D platformer levels are usually short, makes the long level design annoying at times. I think this could have been improved by splitting the levels into 3 chunks, similar to how Sonic Colors DS does its levels, where you have one of the levels a platforming level, the second level is a platforming level, and then the third level is the boss fight. But in the grand scheme of things, this could be seen as a nitpick, as the levels are still really well designed. They're challenging, so you feel accomplished when you beat it, while not being too hard to the point where it's not fun anymore. There's also bonus content depending on which version of Shovel Knight you own. If you own the PlayStation version, you get a separate boss fight against Kratos from God of War, but if you own the Xbox version, you get a fight against the Battletoads. Both of these fights get you special armor that lets you use the boss's abilities. I could not partake in these boss fights, however, since I own the Nintendo 3DS and Switch versions of Shovel Knight, which do have amiibo support. The problem is, I really need to buy some Shovel Knight amiibo. If you couldn't tell by my constant praise, Shovel Knight is a great game. Yeah, the levels are a bit too long at times, but luckily those levels are really well designed and fun to go through, with the right balance of difficulty to go around. Couple that with an appealing pixel art style with fluid animations, and you got the best 2D platformer ever made according to this dumb blue ghost on the internet. If you want to buy Shovel Knight, it's available on Wii U, 3DS, Nintendo Switch, PC, PS3, PS4, PS Vita, Xbox One, and Amazon Fire TV. If you're into buying games for your Amazon Fire TV.